who's the daddy, you don't know.
Told me the baby wasn't mine.
It was this.
I'm not the daddy.
Who's the daddy that paid the daycare?
Oh, I'm gonna go cheat on you.
Sleeping together without protection? So even if you're on or if you're off, you're still having sex. How do you know it?
Because you've been denying the baby, that's why.
Did you break up during the pregnancy?
I remember all my sexual encounters.
Wasting my time.
Ms. Vaught says that Mr. Lindsay abruptly ended their relationship due to paternity doubts over their daughter Shelby. Completely correct to do this, as Ms. Vaught committed paternity fraud by claiming he's Shelby's dad. Prove that Ms. Vaught is indeed a cheat. Those are incredible claims Mr. Lindsay's making. Let's see if they have any truth to them.
Well, the stakes are pretty high today.
Yes, they are, Your Honor.
Explain.
I wouldn't place a baby on someone that I didn't know, like didn't believe was her father. You get what I'm saying? I have 2 previous kids before him, and my children both have the same father. And if I felt in my heart that he wasn't the father, or if it was a second guess of him being the father, I would have told him from the door.
That seems reasonable, but that's what a lot of women who find themselves in paternity court usually say. And sometimes it turns out to be a lie. Ms. Vaught says she and Mr. Lindsay used to have a great relationship for around 2.5 years, and things were very rosy. Well, that was until Mr. Lindsay started listening to hearsay and started doubting that he was the father of Shelby.
What happened, Mr. Lindsay? She says you all were good friends. Were you in a relationship? Were you just dating, or were you committed?
No, we was good friends. We was in a relationship. Everything was going good. Today, I feel like she too friendly. She too friendly to me, man. She too friendly.
Too friendly?
Too friendly.
Everybody, her cousin,
Your
her
Honor,
brother.
he has a
it's
nerve.
like that.
Oh, too friendly with different guys.
Remember, ladies, if you get too friendly with other people, your man may think he's not really the father of your child. Expect you to totally accept that as a sane response to being friendly with other people. That's just the way of the world out here, folks. Don't forget, Mr. Lindsay here and Ms. Too Friendly with Other Guys, Vaught were sleeping together without protection for the entirety of their relationship. So Ms. Vaught may have been too friendly with other guys, but that certainly didn't stop Mr. Lindsay from sleeping with her without protection.
2.5 years. Sleeping together without protection?
Yes, we were.
For 2.5 years?
All the time.
We was on and off for 2.5 years. She not telling the truth. We was on and off
No,
for
he
2.5
went away
years.
for 6 months of the 2.5 years.
And we still was on and off. Yana, when we first met, everything was going good. We was doing good. Then little stuff started popping up with her.
What popped up?
Her talking to people.
Apparently, at some point, Ms. Vaught had told a man on Instagram to knock on the right window when he came to see her. That sounds shady, to be fair, but Ms. Vaught says that happened way before she got serious with Mr. Lindsay. If she's telling the truth, then we've got to doubt Mr. Lindsay's argument here. First of all, why would his first cause of doubt be before he even started dating Ms. Vaught? That generally means the defendant doesn't have a good enough reason to doubt paternity.
So, Mr. Lindsay, besides her on Instagram and you see her telling somebody to knock on the window, what else?
She told me the baby wasn't mine. So what I'm supposed to do?
And that's, Your Honor, I said that out of anger because for him to say, because he would say to me, Your Honor, oh, I don't feel that's my baby. I don't feel that's my baby. Why would you say that when I'm loyal to you? And I have been 110% with you. I don't lie to this man.
Mr. Lindsay might not have had a good reason before, but he certainly had one once Ms. Vaught told him Shelby wasn't his. Saying that to your baby daddy is kind of like ringing a bell. Once you ring it, you cannot unring it. Most men will never forget something like that, and even if that doubt wasn't there before, it's going to start growing. Well, Mr. Lindsay has another reason for doubt.
We live in different towns. I wasn't even in the same town.
You were away
I get
in
back
when?
February, she talked about she pregnant. How did
He
I
was
add up?
away in
Add the months. I'm not,
So you're
I'm not that
saying
good at math. I'm not
if you
math
count
shit,
back
but
9 months,
I know better.
your contention is that she conceived somewhere in the December-ish area.
And New Year's Eve is December.
And you were away with your family out of town for 2 months.
That's a really good and coherent point. But Ms. Vaught says she can distinctly remember being with Mr. Lindsay and having passionate intercourse with him on New Year's Eve. She says she's certain that was the night Shelby was conceived. Mr. Lindsay says he wasn't there and that Ms. Vaught is mistaking him for another man. Well, if that's the case, then he cannot possibly be the father, right?
You assert that you all were together
Yes,
New Year's Eve.
Yes, Your Honor.
And so that would have been December 31st. That would have been within the window of time.
Exactly.
And so, Mr. Lindsay, you're saying that's incorrect, that you were not with her?
I was not there. I don't know if she got me confused with somebody.
And you see,
but I
that's
was not
disrespectful
there.
right there. Because if we were together 2.5 years, how could you open your mouth and say something like that?
And that hurts your feelings.
And it does, because I love this man, and he know I love him.
Right? Ms. Vaught has a great point here, because if Mr. Lindsay really felt this way, he should have said something a while ago. She says Mr. Lindsay was always there for her and Shelby. She says he signed his name on her birth certificate, was with her during delivery, and was with her every step of the way during the pregnancy. If he did that, why is he trying to back out now? Anyway, the results of the lie detector test are out, and it doesn't look really good for Ms. Vaught.
Ms. Vaught, you were asked, did you have sexual contact with the man who sent you an Instagram message about which window to knock on? You said no. The lie detector determined you were being deceptive.
What does that mean? That I was
you was
lying?
lying.
Not telling the truth.
I was lying?
That's what that means, deceptive.
Okay,
you was
Your
lying.
Honor.
Ms. Vaught, you were asked, did you have sexual contact with the man who sent you messages calling you sexy?
Oh, at this point, you'd probably think Shelby doesn't belong to Mr. Lindsay, and Ms. Vaught has been lying all this while, and that's a good guess to make, especially as she failed the lie detector test. But this is paternity court, and things aren't so straightforward. Let's see what the DNA test results have to say about Shelby's paternity.
Mr. Lindsay, you are the father.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm so happy. Can I have that, please? Can I have that?
Oh, you
Yes,
want to put this
because-
up in the house?
Yep.
You're going to
I'ma
put this
show
on the
to
refrigerator.
every family member.
I can only imagine what it feels like.
It
For
hurt.
9 months, you have
It
a
hurt.
beautiful baby,
It
and
hurt.
people are questioning you, questioning the baby. Father won't be fully attached. Constant arguments.
Ms. Graham is certain that her on-again, off-again fiancé is her 4-year-old child's father, and just wants the court to set the record straight. The man in question, Mr. Scott, believes the exact opposite and says he has strong proof for his claims. And what's that proof? Well, Mr. Scott says there's always a twin in his family, and Ms. Graham's child Taylor isn't a twin. That's right. It's the no-twin paternity hypothesis.
You say your engagement is on the line and you want the truth. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
So, Ms. Graham, you say you need today's results to save your relationship. Tell the court why.
Basically, we're planning a wedding and we're getting in arguments every day about the paternity. He knows he's the father. He's knew since I've told him several times that he's the father and he still tries to deny it.
Before this paternity issue came up, Ms. Graham and Mr. Scott had plans to get married. Mr. Scott had even proposed. So how did they get from almost getting married to paternity court?
Your Honor, I asked her for a test over and over again. I
Okay,
keep
but
getting
take
a
me back.
runaround.
How did we get to the point where, okay, will you marry me? Yes, I will. But we need a DNA test. I mean, how do we get from being engaged and being happy, planning a wedding, to all of a sudden this DNA thing looming over our heads?
Because I want to move on with it, but not if Taylor Rose is not my daughter.
So not only is Taylor's paternity on the line, but the entire relationship and future marriage is on the line too. These are big stakes, and with stakes as huge as this, we should expect both parties to be as honest as they can be, right?
What happened during this on-off thing that produced this paternity question?
It was him. I know the night that I conceived. I definitely know the night I conceived. We went down to Orlando. We got a room. We had sex for about a week, nonstop. He knows exactly which weekend I'm talking about.
Your Honor, that's
It's like after I got pregnant.
They'd gotten engaged even before the child was conceived, but once Ms. Graham told Mr. Scott that she was pregnant, the issues started coming up, but that doesn't make sense. If they were going to get married anyway and were sleeping together without protection, why would a pregnancy announcement complicate things? Well, that's where it gets complicated.
Your Honor, I found out that she was
Responsibilities.
pregnant prior to her telling me. The reason how I found out was when I went back into the house, I was searching through paperwork, cleaning up, and when I cleaned up, I saw something from the doctor's office and it said that she was like 6 weeks pregnant. And we only been back together for like 2 weeks. So how is it possible that Taylor Rose is my daughter?
Oh, so Mr. Scott says they might have been on and off, but the dates certainly don't add up. Mr. Scott says he didn't tell her about seeing the paperwork and waited for her to break the news to him herself. Ms. Graham, on the other hand, says she only hesitated before telling me Scott about the pregnancy because it was her first child and she panicked. How believable is that to you?
So after I told him, I'm expecting him to be excited, and he just, oh, that's not my child. Like, it was just like a big mess. The one person in the world who I was expecting to embrace this turned into my enemy. I had to do this completely alone. And I mean, like, no mother, no woman should have to do that. He completely left me.
Well, Mr. Scott thinks Ms. Graham hesitated before telling him because she wasn't sure she wanted to make him the child's father. Can you really blame him? Most men would think the same if they found such paperwork. Anyway, Ms. Graham must have a coherent explanation for this mismatch in dates, right?
I just wanted to have time. I had just graduated. I just wanted to have time for myself to see what my options were before I had him, down my throat, do this, do this, do this. So once I did make the decision to keep the child, I brought it to him. I was very afraid afraid. Like like I said, I just had graduated. My life is just beginning to take off.
That explanation was many things, but it wasn't coherent and definitely didn't satisfy the question. It seems Ms. Graham is playing a game of ostrich here and is hiding her head in the sand. Anyway, Judge Lake asks the question again, and Ms. Graham does the same thing.
Mr. Scott is saying that during the window of time when this baby would have been conceived, you all were on the out. Just because you were still having sex with him doesn't, of course, change the fact that you could have been having sex with somebody else. Was there someone else that you were dating or seeing?
Not before I was pregnant, no.
But after you were pregnant, there was?
Yes.
So who were you with when you gave birth to Taylor?
Now we are getting somewhere. Ms. Graham says her new boyfriend after she got pregnant was the one with her when she got pregnant. She also says that Mr. Scott somehow came to the hospital after she'd given birth and caused a scene. Mr. Scott made a scene by screaming that Ms. Graham cheated on him, and Taylor isn't his child because she's not a twin and all of that. But if he knew that Taylor wasn't his child, what was even the point of making a scene? It's ridiculous.
She was in the hospital and had the baby.
I didn't want that
I had
stress.
to find out from someone else.
I did not want that stress. And I was right.
What stress?
I was right. He came up there and he did every single thing that I knew he was going to do, which is why I did not call him. I didn't tell him at all.
Your Honor, she did call me and she said, you are not the father.
When was
did,
this?
Your Honor.
Did you call him and tell him he's not the
Yes.
father?
No.
Wait, what? Okay, even if she did call Mr. Scott and tell him that, why would it matter? He already said that the baby wasn't his. Why would her confirming that enrage him so much? And what's up with this twins business?
Your Honor, twins run in my family. Taylor Rose is not a twin.
Well, every child born in a family that has twins won't be a twin.
Well, I know my sister didn't have any twins. I know I will be the one to have twins. Taylor Rose is not my child.
Where are you getting this information from, Mr. Scott?
It's what I know.
How do you know it?
From my family history, I know.
Oh.
So it's biology against Mr. Scott. Let's see who comes out on top. Does Taylor Rose belong to Mr. Scott or someone else? The DNA test results have our answers, and it might shock you.
Mr. Scott, you are not the father.
Thank you, Your Honor. I already knew I wasn't.
Jerome, can you go see if you can try to get Miss Graham?
Could I speak with her for a moment?
No, just let her have a minute. Let her have a minute.
Yes, ma'am.
You ain't got to get all silly.
Yes,
If
ma'am.
you know something in your heart, and that's what you truly feel, you stand respectfully as a man, you just get the result. Miss Graham?
Yes, Your Honor.
So, obviously, the part of this story wasn't true.
There were some details.
Mr. Wilson is sure he isn't the biological father of Ms. Butler's two daughters, 19-month-old Niana. He says Ms. Butler was sleeping with everyone who could get her to be horizontal and that the babies are definitely not his. Ms. Butler, of course, denies this completely and says that both children definitely belong to Mr. Wilson. Let's see about that.
Mr. Wilson, I'll start with you. You say you are adamant that these two children are not yours. Explain.
When we first got together, at the time she had the baby, she was a liar, cheating all the time, had multiple guys running out of the house, all on the internet. I mean, go to the apartment, everybody talking about who she messing with.
So you say these kids aren't yours?
No, they're not mine. They're not mine, not at all.
Well, many men have arrived at paternity court with even more certainty than Mr. Wilson here and have been proven wrong. Full disclosure here, Mr. Wilson is 48 and Ms. Butler is just 25. So maybe Mr. Wilson just thinks Ms. Butler is a cheat because she hangs out with people of her age. Maybe that's just the case. But Mr. Wilson disagrees.
Ms. Butler, you say he's absolutely incorrect.
Yes, these kids is definitely his.
So let me ask you this, because it's right here in my court file, so let's just be honest about it. There's a significant age difference between you, Mr.
Yes.
Wilson, and Ms. Butler. You are 48, she is 25.
Yes.
Are you sure this is not a situation where you may feel like Ms. Butler is out there?
Okay, Mr. Wilson. Maybe you've got a point, but you've got to prove all these allegations you're making. First, let's start with Zaria, since there are two children here. Why do you think Ms. Butler here is a cheat? You must have some really good reasons to think she was sleeping with other men when Zaria was conceived, right?
One time I go up to her job to see her at work, taking some lunch, and I seen her get out of another guy's car. And I got a cell phone, and I seen that she'd been in a whole nother relationship with this other guy, a light-skinned guy by her skin color.
It wasn't a relationship.
And what?
Okay, wait. So I want to understand this. At the time Zaria was conceived, you thought you all were committed.
I thought so.
But
Oh, it looks like Ms. Butler isn't a completely innocent party here, but here's the good thing. Dear Miss Butler has a perfect explanation for her behavior.
we wasn't living together, so
don't mean
it was
nothing.
kind of different though.
Oh, you can't be in a committed relationship unless you live together?
I mean, I did love him though, I really did, but
No, she didn't.
I did love you, but
I mean, if you love me, you wouldn't have never, called at work with another guy. Now, I read the text messages, calling him daddy and all that stuff, and yeah.
That sounds really bad, Ms. Butler. But at least it was a one-time thing, right? It never happened after that, right? Well, wrong.
Didn't want us to be together because of age difference.
Okay.
You know, I understand that, you know. She sending naked pictures of other guys. The same picture she sent me.
So you went through her phone and you saw the same picture she'd send you.
Yes,
the
the other
sexy
guy.
picture, she sent them to somebody else.
Yes, even when we were living together, she was doing the same thing.
Were you double dipping on the pictures, Miss
I was
Butler?
triple dipping, quadruple tripping.
It's not often you see a man accuse a woman of cheating in paternity court, and she clearly admits to it. Ms. Butler is one honest woman. Well, at least she's honest about these allegations. But Mr. Wilson isn't done yet. He has some more things to say.
You said something about you caught her at work?
Yeah, I was going to take a lunch, and she worked late, so I was going to take a lunch, you know, being a good man. And nobody couldn't find her. I couldn't find her at work. I looks up, she getting out of the car with this other dude and bumped right into me. She got her head down and bumped right into me. And that's when she dropped the phone, I picked up the phone, and I just pushed her out the way and left. And she screaming for a cell phone. I got in the car and left. And that's when I read the phone. That's when she calling the other dude daddy and all that.
And Ms. Butler, true to form, admits that this happened too. She says she did meet the guy and tried to sleep with him, and they tried it a couple of times, but never actually did it. What does that even mean, you may ask? Well, Ms. Butler says the guy never finished, so they just slept together without finishing a couple of times. That sounds reasonable and totally doesn't sound like cheating.
So you find out you're pregnant with Zariah. You tell him you're pregnant. He immediately says he has doubts. You say you don't have doubts. You know that Zariah is his child because you just know.
Yeah, because I just know, because we will always have sex, like, all the time.
No, we didn't.
Yes, we did.
All right, now take me to her birth. What was going on?
I mean, I didn't have my phone at the hospital, so I would have definitely had called him, so.
Oh, he wasn't even there.
No, ma'am.
Because my
That's another
phone,
situation.
I didn't have my phone around that time.
That's it, folks. Mr. Wilson says he knows Zariah isn't his because he's caught Ms. Butler cheating on him several times. Ms. Butler says she knows the child is his because, well, she just knows, and that they had intercourse multiple times without condoms. This is such W conundrum, and only the DNA test results can solve it. Let's see what the results have to say.
Mr. Wilson, you are not the father.
Told you.
Or not?
Yeah, she said it. I'm not the daddy.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
That's not crazy.
Zariah?
Yeah, she's not my baby. You better go make some phone calls.
That's crazy.
I've been telling you for 4
He
years.
is not Zariah's biological father.
The incredible thing about this entire episode is that Ms. Butler just keeps smiling throughout. It's like this doesn't bother her in the least. It doesn't matter to her at all. Thankfully, Judge Lake calls her out on that.
Come on out, because you've been in this fog for far too long, so come on out. Yes, it's sad.
This is real sad.
I don't think I've ever seen a young woman stand in a courtroom and be so cavalier about sleeping with everybody that she feels like. And you supposed to be running around here taking care of this baby, and she 4 years old, she's supposed to be learning her nursery rhyme, and all you can sing is eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Who's the daddy? You don't know.
This episode is for show business. On one side, we've got Ms. Reynolds and her daughter. Ms. Reynolds claims that Mr. Fleecian, who's dressed like a black Elvis Presley, is her daughter's father. She says she has known this for the past 20 years and hopes paternity court reveals the truth today. Mr. Fleecian says he doesn't remember ever sleeping with Ms. Reynolds, and as such, it's impossible that her daughter belongs to him.
So, Ms. Reynolds, what was the nature of your relationship with the defendant?
We didn't have a relationship. I met him at a sex toy party, and he was the stripper.
He was the entertainment.
Yes.
Teddy bear.
Yes. And, you know, we didn't have any action at that time, but maybe a week later, we were at a popular club in our city.
What? What? Do human beings have a mating call? This is Paternity Court, National Geographic. Why would Ms. Reynolds even say that in front of her child? Hopefully, she doesn't do the mating call in court, right? Wait, she doesn't do it, right?
Yes.
How did that make you feel, Jerome?
Running over
Did
there.
that.
Exactly.
So, when you were at the club, you hit that note.
I did. Maybe a couple of nights later, or maybe a week or so, he gave me a call after hours, booty calling out.
At least Ms. Reynolds' daughter can go home after court safe in the knowledge that she's heard her mother's mating call. How many of you can say the same? None of you? Exactly. Well, back to the case.
And he said he was gonna come through, and he did. He slid through.
Okay.
Maybe about 5 times, I can remember 3 exactly, that he came over to my home, booty calling hours. I didn't know nothing about this man as far as what was his favorite color. We never dated, you know, we didn't go out or anything like that. It was always booty call.
Wow, that just sounds crazy. Do you know what would be crazier? Mr. Fleetion says he doesn't remember any of this ever happening.
So, Mr. Fleeton, do you remember sleeping with Ms. Reynolds?
No, ma'am, I have no recollection of ever having a sexual encounter with Miss Mary.
But I'm unforgettable.
Well, do you remember her mating call? Hit that one more time. Do you remember hearing that one night?
No, ma'am.
So you don't remember being intimate with Ms. Reynolds at all?
No, ma'am.
Okay, there are three options. It's either Mr. Fleetion slept with so many women during his heydays that he honestly can't remember sleeping with Ms. Reynolds, or Ms. Reynolds is ashamed to admit that her mating call isn't really that convincing, or someone here is straight up lying. So, how did we get here? The story will blow your mind as it did mine.
I was dating one of her daughter's friends, and she recognized me. And I'm sorry, no disrespect, babe, no disrespect. But like I say, today I'm here to find out if I'm Kiesha's biological father.
So the court was able to obtain photos of each of you from back in the day. Take a look at the picture, Mr. Fleeton, of Ms. Reynolds.
This is a lot to take in. So, back to option one. Maybe Mr. Fleetion slept with so many people that he can't remember them. But Mr. Fleetion disagrees with that theory.
Have you ever had sex with somebody and then didn't remember it?
I remember all my sexual encounters.
So can you take me to the moment when you found out you were pregnant, Ms. Reynolds?
Well, when I became pregnant, I was with my ex at that time because we were on and off. And at the time that I had an encounter with Mose, me and my ex was off. And we had gotten back together. So the whole time I just knew that I was pregnant for my ex.
When Ms. Reynolds got pregnant, she was on and off with her ex. She thought that the baby belonged to her ex, but when her child was born, she realized that he was a carbon copy of Mr. Fleetion. But somehow she was able to convince her ex that the baby was his.
And he actually finally came to my house and we talked about it. And I told him that Kiesha could possibly be his child. And he said he didn't remember sleeping with me. And at that moment, I said, oh well, so taking it to my grave at that point.
So you basically were telling him to protect your daughter.
Exactly.
And once he said, I don't even remember you, you just said, you know what, I'm taking it to my grave. My ex has bought into the fact that he's her biological father.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not as insane as the worst things we've seen on paternity court, but it's still really mad. Kezia, the daughter in question, says her mother's ex was always the man she saw as her father, but he was never really in her life, and she didn't like that at all.
If by chance Kiesha's my biological daughter, if I would have knew back then, she would have had a totally different lifestyle.
Mr. Fleeton, I can tell how emotional this makes you. I see the tears in your eye. What's moving you so much? Can you put it into words?
Since I met Kiesha, for the last 6 months, I've been there. She called, I'm not busy, I'm there. Her birthday party, I was there.
But how did Mr. Fleetion get back with Ms. Reynolds? He'd said that he didn't even remember sleeping with her. So how did he go from that to having such a deep connection with Kezia?
And I stepped to her and I said, you look like you could be my baby. And I guess she went back home to her mom and told her she met.
When he said that, I can see you are emotional too, Kiesha, what did that feel like?
I felt confused, had nobody as a father in my life, and I got kids of my own. I want them to grow up with the grandfather and basically going down the right road and not the wrong road.
Wow, that's moving. Well, let's see whether this is true. Is Mr. Fleetion the father of Kezia as her mother claims, or is there something else happening here?
Mr. Fleeton, you are not the father. I'm very sorry, Kiesha.
I was hearing, I didn't know.
You okay, honey?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to say this to you because you've been so strong and I appreciate your strength. I admire you for it, but I do want to let you know that it is okay to express what you really feel. Because at the end of the day, this is about you and this is for you. You're gonna be okay.